Hi everyone, this is Sue Reynolds with the American Student Achievement Institute. We are beginning our webinar for SI2 schools, and the focus of this webinar is interventions. So we will review our organizational structure, improvement process, and deadlines, and then today we're talking about interventions. So first of all, let's start out with that quick review. Again, the organizational structure. You are part of a steering team. Remember, the steering team are the process managers. You're the worker bees of this initiative. But you're managing change. You're not making decisions, but you're managing change. However, because this is a quick year, we are not going to be using a school improvement council, and therefore the steering team is making decisions this year as well as managing the change process. So just as a reminder, because this is a quick version of the School Improvement Institute, we are not involving a student body in the discussions. However, we will do that next year. And as I said, we're not involving a council, but we will do that next year. Having the students in the council involved makes the discussion a whole lot richer and really leads to some really good decisions. Okay, so very quickly on the process, we began with you in April. You got everything ready to go, put together your steering team, you collected data. And then in April we did a real quick introduction to SI2, and then in May you did the first task, which was to create your vision statement. Remember, your vision was a lofty picture of the way that your school and community would look if all of your dreams for kids came true. And we also dropped dream data into your vision statement because SI2 is a data-driven process, and so we want to say, if our dreams come true, what would our data look like? Then in June, we went back from the dream world to reality, and we said, okay, our dream data is here. Our real data, where we are right now, is here. Where can we set goals, which would be halfway or partway between the real data, the realistic data where you are right now, and that dream data? We set two different kinds of goals. We set primary areas for improvement, or PAIs. Those were very broad goals, like improve language arts or improve math. They're very broad. They kind of give you a sense of where your school's going, but they don't focus your work like a SMART goal does. So underneath each of the broad PAIs, we had very specific SMART goals. We said, okay, we're going to increase the percentage of 7th graders who have mastered ratios on the I-STEP assessment. And we want to improve that by X amount a year from now. So the SMART goals were very, very targeted. We did that in June. Then the last time we spoke with you, we came up with root causes, and your root causes are the areas that are getting in the way of you reaching your goals. So it may be that there's issues going on with instruction or assessment or your expectations for students or your learning environment or student guidance. So we looked at all different kinds of areas that might be impacting your ability to reach your goals. We also had you look at DOE's turnaround principles. We think that those turnaround principles have some really good concepts in them that all schools should be looking at when they're thinking about improving their schools. So we looked at goals, we looked at your root causes, and you've set your root causes. So this month we're talking about, okay, what are we going to do about those root causes? The fixes are your interventions. So if one of your root causes was that attendance is not good in your school, then the interventions would be things that are going to impact attendance. If one of the things in your root causes is that you don't provide extra help for students in math, then your intervention would fix that root cause. You'd begin providing extra help in math. So the intervention are the fixes, and I think it's really important to understand that when we get to the fixes step, we're not just pulling things out of thin air to say, oh, we read about this in this, this journal, so let's do that, or oh, this might be fun to do. Our interventions are very, very focused. Starts out with a goal. We figure out what's getting in the way of the goal being achieved. Those are your root causes. And now our interventions are going to tackle those root causes. When we make the root causes go away, then you'll reach your goals. So those interventions are very carefully targeted in the SI2 process. So that's what we're talking about today. And then as soon as you finish your interventions and Tina has improved them all, then immediately we're going to move on to preparation. Remember, we're not going to do a webinar here. Instead, there will be a video that will be up tomorrow. And as soon as you've finished interventions, you can move right on to preparation. And again, we're on this kind of quick timeline because of the timeline that DOE has provided for us, with last year's school improvement plans not being due until March 1st and this year's school improvement plans being due October 1st. So we're really on a condensed timeline here. So once again, we're going to talk about interventions today. As soon as Tina has approved all of your interventions, then you'll move right on to preparation. You'll be able to, I'll show you where it is, but you'll be able to download the video and watch those instructions immediately without having to wait for the next webinar. So, okay. So let's talk about interventions. So there's two parts to interventions. The first part is just having a discussion with your steering team. So the question that your steering team is talking about is, what will our school and our community do to address each of our root causes? Notice that the word do is in caps and in red because, I wanted to emphasize that because this is the action step. Everything right now has been talking and planning and focusing and targeting. Now we're talking about doing. What are we going to do about it? Then I also capitalize the word each because we'll need to look at each of your root causes and one at a time talk about, okay, attendance is a root cause. What are we going to do about that? We're not teaching ratios in our classroom. What are we going to do about that? Our kids don't have extra help for math. What are we going to do about that? So we're looking at each of the root causes and then figuring out the best fix for your school and your community. Also, as we involve the community more next year, what we'll find is that the community will start to jump in, and your community foundation or your Kiwanis Club or whatever will start to look at, what could we do in the community to help address these root causes as well. But since we're not working with a council this year, most of your interventions will probably be school-based this year. Okay, so here's your tasks for this work. The first task is the discussion. We're going to review each of the root causes. Then we're going to research interventions for each root cause. We have some tools that will help you see what other schools have done when they have root causes that are similar to yours. Then as a steering team, you're going to talk about and just brainstorm, okay, what are the interventions that we could do for this root cause? And then your steering team will select the interventions that you're deciding to do next year. So again, we're going to review the root causes. Then for one at a time, we're going to look at the root cause, research possible interventions, and then select the interventions that you're going to do. Okay, after your discussion is all over with, you'll enter the root causes into our system, and then you'll do the post-discussion activities. And this is really a rich part of our program. What will happen at this point, after all your interventions are in, is that you'll have all these crosswalk reports that will come out that you don't have to enter anything, it just automatically appears. And they'll help you look at the strength of your school improvement plan, and it'll help you determine if your school improvement plan meets all these outside expectations that the Department of Ed and others have for your school. So as you look at these crosswalks reports, you may come up with something like this. You may say, attendance isn't really an issue at our school, but oh my gosh, this outside Department of Ed says we have to have a attendance intervention, so we better put one in. So, or you might say, one of our issues was attendance, and you're looking at all of your interventions, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. Oh my gosh, we don't have enough time and energy to possibly do all those interventions well. These crosswalks will help you look at your interventions in different ways to strengthen your school improvement plan. And again, we think it's a very rich part of our program that helps our schools' improvement plans really be successful in raising student achievement. So one other thing I wanted to point out on this slide is on the very last thing, meet external expectations. I put that in red because it's the first time we've ever brought it up. We do not want you to design your school improvement plan to meet anybody else's expectations. We want it to be driven by your local data. So we've not talked about DOE's expectations or Title I's expectations or anything else until this point. After you've developed all of the interventions that make sense for your school based on your data for your students, then we'll say, okay, what is everybody else's expectations and how are we going to fit those in with the least amount of energy and time that we can. So I'll show you how we do that in the system, and again, I think these are parts that make the SI2 process really rich and successful. Okay, here are some questions that might come up. A lot of times people ask us, well, how many interventions should we have? There's really not a good answer for that. We want enough interventions to significantly impact each of your root causes, but we also don't want to have so many interventions that your staff is spread too thin. And we have a crosswalk report that's going to help you think about, am I spreading my staff too thin? If you spread your staff too thin, you end up doing everything in a mediocre way. We find it works a lot better if you have a small number of significant interventions so that you can hit those really, really well. Okay, so when we're talking about interventions, what you're going to do, we're going to ask you to assign an energy level to each of those interventions. So when you're putting interventions into the system, the system will ask you, is this a high energy, medium, or low energy intervention? So high energy would involve the entire faculty in a major initiative, like if you were to decide that the whole faculty was going to learn about differentiated instruction, and you were going to teach it, and then you were going to have people do it while they were being observed, and then there were going to be discussion groups after people tried it for the first time. I mean, that's involving the whole staff. It's huge on professional development. And so that would be a high energy intervention. It's something that's involving everybody in a big way. It's happening inside the classroom. It's huge. Then the next level is medium. That would involve the entire faculty in a medium way, or it might involve a few in a major way. So maybe you've got an intervention that's going to tax all of your school counselors, but it wouldn't tax the teachers. So that would be a medium intervention because it's a few people in a major way. And then finally, a low energy intervention would involve the entire faculty in a minor way, like if you were to change the way that you report attendance. And so everybody's just really not doing a lot of extra work, they're just changing a process. That would be a low energy intervention. So, okay, so we want you to understand these terms because when we get into the system, you'll be asked to describe your interventions according to their energy levels. Okay, so in this post-discussion, you'll have these crosswalk reports, and they will help you determine how strong your school improvement plan is. So what you'll be able to ask is, do your interventions collectively sufficiently address each root cause? So there's a root cause crosswalk. Do they address the elements of high achieving schools the way you want them to? So there's the elements crosswalk. Do they address the Indiana turnaround principles? And again, you'll look at that and say, do they address them the way we want them to? And that will kind of depend on, if you're a priority school, you're required to address all of the principles, so you'll be able to look through that report and make sure you're addressing them all. And then number 4 is, do they meet external expectations? So is at least one of your interventions meeting each of the Title I expectations, the priority focus school expectations, and all of the expectations for Public Law 221. So you'll look at there's crosswalk reports for each of those where you'll be able to see, am I meeting the expectations of all those outside groups? And then the fifth one is the energy crosswalk report, where you'll be able to look at everything and determine if you think you're overtaxing or undertaxing your staff. Okay, so if the answer to any of those questions is no, then you would need to add a new intervention or edit an intervention that you already have. So, and then one tip also on interventions is if you are adding an intervention only because the Department of Ed says you have to, or only because you have to because of Title I or whatever, and you're not doing it because it addresses one of your own root causes, we would suggest that you consider implementing a low energy intervention. In other words, you're going to meet the expectation, but you're not going to spend a lot of time and energy doing it. We think your time and energy is better spent addressing the interventions that align with your root causes. Those root causes are driven by local data. They're individualized for your school, your students, your data, and we think that's where you need to be spending your time and energy. So we're going to be compliant with everything else, but we're going to do it in a way that's very doesn't take up a lot of time and energy. Okay. So I'm going to fly through this next part, and then we'll get online and demonstrate a little bit, which is where I want to spend most of our time today. So there are rubrics for this. We check a lot of things. We're checking to make sure that you're compliant with all the outside expectations. We are very carefully reading each of your interventions that align with your root causes and making sure that they are well written and well thought out, and that you're going to be able to hit the ground running when you begin implementing them. So the first rubric, when you click on the rubric item, looks like this. And it shows, the rubric items for the discussion summary, and then for each of the crosswalks, the collective interventions associated with each root cause hold high promise for impacting the associated root cause if the interventions are fully implemented with integrity. So that would be what we're looking for in the root cause crosswalk report. In our ACA Elements, a majority of the interventions address curriculum, instruction, assessment, and extra help, because we know that that's the elements that have the biggest bang for the buck. So for each of the crosswalk reports, you'll find individualized rubric items. And again, we spend a lot of time very carefully reading your school improvement plan here, because again, if your interventions are weak, if they don't align with those root causes, then it's a waste of time. So we're going to read those carefully. Tina's going to call you if we have any issues, if we think your school improvement plan is weak, if we think maybe you're overburdening your staff time-wise and energy-wise, or whatever. Any red flags that go up for Tina, she's going to call and ask you questions about them. So we spend a lot of time coaching and mentoring on this step. Then in this section right up here, it says also that there's a rubric item for each individual intervention. And if you click on this button, you'll go to the interventions page, and on this page it'll list all of your interventions, and then it will tell you a status. So you can click that status. The rubric items will pop up for that specific intervention, and then you can see Tina's review of that and any comments that she has. So this is what it would look like. This is one intervention. It's an intervention called Activity Period Math Club, and here's everything that Tina's looking at. So this is a school that's Title I, and it's a DOE-focused targeted school, so your school won't have all of these things, but depending on how you're using your school improvement plan, but it'll have a lot of them. So each intervention we're reviewing very, very carefully. You can imagine that takes Tina a ton of time, and we know with our shortened time period this year, not only are you short on time, but Tina's going to be short on time. So we had a staff meeting this morning and kind of set up a backup plan so that we could help Tina with time as she's doing all of these reviews for you. So, okay. So let's go to the online demo, and when I'm switching over, Tina, do we have any questions so far?
None so far.
Okay, that was quick. Okay, thanks, Tina. Okay, so I'm on the Vision to Action Process page, and I'm going to scroll down to the Intervention section. Okay, so I'm in Interventions, and notice that there are two parts. Here's the discussion, and then here's the post-discussion activities. So the first thing is participating in the webinar, which you're doing right now. The archive version of this webinar will appear here. Then you're going to review the root cause report. So you open up the root cause report, and it's just reminding you of your root causes. Student attendance is low. Students do not have access to extra help for math. 7th grade math teachers do not teach lessons on ratios. And remember, all of these aligned with my goals. It's my explanation of why, of things that are getting in the way of my reaching my SMART goals. Okay, so I know that's what I'm trying to design interventions around, those three areas. So the next thing, and let me go back, I'm just going to, let's just take one of these. Let's say attendance is low. Let's say I'm going to research interventions for attendance being low. So the next thing I do is I go to this step, research interventions for each root cause. So I'm going to click on the tool, and these are different intervention sources that we have for you. So the first one is a list of all of the interventions that all of the SI2 schools have put into the system for the last 20 years. So I can click on interventions, and then I'm just going to type in the word attendance, and I want to say that I want a general, because it's going to impact all of my goals. I'm going to want a high impact. So what this section means is when I have three choices here. I have a high impact inside, high impact outside, and low impact. High impact inside is something that's really going to have an impact on the goal, and it's an intervention that's going to happen inside the classroom. And then high impact is something that's really targeted to the root cause, but it's happening outside the classroom. The biggest bang for the buck is interventions that happen inside the classroom that are high impact. There's also low impact, and we put that in here just to help you think about. I was watching the news last weekend, and there was a news segment about how an organization had purchased book bags for all the students in Indianapolis. And, you know, that's great. I mean, it's a really nice thing to do. However, if the 6th graders are being taught 3rd grade content, those book bags aren't going to make any difference. If the 6th graders are disengaged in the classroom, those book bags aren't going to make any difference. So we would consider book bags a low impact intervention. You know, it's nice, but it's probably, you know, it can't have a big impact by itself. We really need to be looking at those inside the classrooms and then high impact outside. So I want to look at an attendance. I'm probably looking for outside the classroom, and I want it to be high impact. So I'll click that one. And then the last one is I'm going to see if there's if it's high energy, medium, or low. The low energy continuation, that I didn't talk about earlier. What that is, it's an initiative, maybe like differentiated instruction, that at one point was really high energy as I was first implementing it, but now everybody's doing it. It's just humming. So it's low energy, and the reason it's low energy is because I'm continuing it. It's not something that's brand new. So I'm going to see if we have any low energy. That would be nice, that people thought were high impact and general. Focus addressed is, in this case, I think I'm just going to leave that blank, although attendance would be the learning environment for us. And then I can also say that I want to see interventions that are going to impact males more, or blacks more, or American Indians, or free and reduced lunch students. I'm just going to leave that one blank for right now. And I'm going to show 5 plans per page. So I just click on that, and there are 9 that come up, and you can see that the title of the intervention is here. This is the strategy plan report, so I can see the whole report for this school, and then I can click here to say more. So, so you can see there's one from Worthington Elementary, Maple Crest Middle, Lyons Elementary. So there's a ton of those. If I had not put in the, let's see, let's just leave these blank, and let's see how much we come up with. So maybe I want some other ideas. And so if I leave everything blank but attendance, I end up with 733 interventions that are in the system that you could look at for ideas about how to impact attendance. Okay, so those are interventions that other schools have entered into the system. The next one is from another initiative that we did that lists community-based interventions. So I'm going to, in this search, so this would be things like that the Kiwanis Club have done, or the Chamber of Commerce, your local Chamber of Commerce, or the Lions Club, or whatever. So I'm just going to put attendance in here, and to be honest, I have no idea what's going to pop up, but let's just see if we've got any community organizations that have done initiatives around attendance. And I have 26. So, you can see like Kelly Services, here's an awards day, that one was a school, that's a school. Yeah, some of these are going to be schools as well, but there'll be some, here's a cooperative extension office in Crawfordsville. So that's another way that you can just kind of search for maybe some new ideas about how to address attendance. Then this next tab is our sessions from our conference. So I think we go back 5 or 6 years. So again, on this screen, I'm just going to do a Control F. That pops up a search box, and I'm just going to type in the word attendance, and I have 1. So I could go to that, and where is it? Oops, I see it there. It's hiding behind my screen. At any rate, so that's another source that you have. And then finally, we could go just to do a Google search and just type in school attendance strategies or something like that, and then that would pop up. So you're doing all of this research, and you're jotting down ideas. So your steering team is like looking for cool things that you could do. And then in the next step, you're just going to discuss which interventions you feel like you should implement next year. So you're kind of coming up with a consensus about which interventions to do next year to address your root causes. Then the last couple of steps is we need to open up Council Discussion 5. So same ways you've done that in the past, we just have to open it up so we can get the summary in. And then if you click on Summary, we decided to ask the same questions again. Please list the people who participated and describe the level of engagement and several key points that were made during the discussion. That helps Tina really kind of get a sense of how rich that discussion was locally. So, okay, so now we know our interventions. Now for the rich part, let's move on to post-discussion tasks. So I'm going to enter the interventions, and I'm going to click Enter. And I've already put in 2 interventions, one for math extra help and another for attendance. And again, I'm probably on attendance, I'm probably going to have several interventions. Just calling parents is not going to be enough to impact attendance. So, but the one root cause that this demo school had that's not in here was that teachers were not teaching lessons on ratios. So I'm going to add an intervention just to kind of demonstrate how this works. Okay, so I'm going to put a title in, 7th grade ratios lesson sequence. And then a description, 7th grade teachers will and then I'll describe, what the teachers are doing to get that instruction into their curriculum. Then, which root causes does this intervention address? So here are my root causes. And 7th grade math teachers do not teach lessons on ratios. Bingo, that's it. One thing to point out here is this external expectation. If you're putting in an intervention that does not align with any of your root causes, you're only putting it in to meet somebody's expectation. So the Indiana Department's expectations of you, or the federal Title I expectations of your school. That's the only reason you're doing it. It does not align with your root causes. If that's the case, then you're going to click on external expectation. This tells us, and it tells you, that the only reason you're doing this is to be compliant with somebody. It does not really go with your goals or your root causes. Okay, so what this one does, so I'm going to click that. Student focus group. Does this intervention specifically address the student group that appears in parentheses after the root causes that you checked above? So if I look up here, is this intervention, these ratio lessons, are they going to reach males more, or blacks more, or free and reduced lunch? Am I targeting these lessons so that they're going to reach one of these groups? And I'm going to say yes, and I need to explain why. Up here I'm going to say ratio practice problems will focus on topics that are of interest to black males. Okay, so I've said yes then, and then I'm going to come down here, check male, and check black. Okay, so now I've got my groups in, and it is perfectly okay if you didn't focus the intervention on reaching a specific student group. It's perfectly okay to say no. Okay, and the other next question was, does it, what student grade level? This is focusing on 7th grade. Okay, so does this intervention focus on task students? If you're a task school, you know what that means, but if it's not, if it's for all students, not just the targeted assistance students with Title I, you would say no. And then ACA Elements, this is an instructional initiative. And then the impact area, this is definitely going to be inside the classroom. And on energy, I'm going to say medium, because it is going to impact the 7th grade math teachers in a big way. They're going to have some work to do here. But it's not going to impact my language arts teachers or my counselors or anybody else, so I'm going to put it in as a medium. And then if you do not want to include this intervention in our searchable database that I just showed you, just click that. But if you do want to share this intervention with other schools, like almost all of our schools do, just leave that blank. And then I'm clicking entry for this tab is complete, and then I'm saving. Okay, so that's tab 1 for this intervention on 7th grade ratios. Okay, the next tab is where I'm going to tell, does this intervention align with any external expectations? So here are turnaround principles. Is this addressing any of these? Well, maybe I think it might with instruction. So I'm going to hover over this. And this is according to Department of Ed, practice that ensure teachers utilize research-based, rigorous, effective instruction to meet the needs of all students and align with state standards. Absolutely. So I'm going to click yes on that one. Then I get a drop-down of these are the rubric items within the state's turnaround principles. So these are DOE's rubric items. Teachers ensure that student learning objectives are specific, measurable, obtainable, and are highly... So I would just read through each of these and check the ones that apply. Okay, so that was turnaround principles. Now I'm going to scroll down to the next set of requirements, which is Indiana rules and regs for school-wide. Does this involve parent involvement? No. Is it safe and disciplined? No. So I'm going to go past that. Next one's Indiana rules and regs. Does this impact attendance? No. Offering Core 40? No. No. Cultural competency? No. Technology is a learning tool. It depends on how that description was written, but I didn't say anything in the description about using technology in instruction, so I'm not going to check that off. It's not Indiana graduation plan, it's not a reading plan, it's not high ability plan, it's not part of the my school tech plan. So all of those will leave blank. Title I school-wide, instructional, quality, yes. So you know, read through those, see if there's any others that you can use this intervention to meet. Title I, targeted assistance, you know, read through those. Title I, focus targeted. So it's not English learner, it's not special ed. So entry for this tab is complete. Save. Okay, then the next tab is really important. So what we want to know is who at your school is going to be responsible for making sure that this intervention is implemented. So let's say you're thinking about this is going to impact the 7th grade math teachers. Well, there's a 7th grade lead math teacher, it's Jane Doe. So I'm going to put Jane Doe in as being responsible. I want to make sure that Jane Doe knows that she's responsible for this intervention. Then implementation dates. I can say that this is ongoing, so daily or weekly, and if I click that, I can go that route. Or I can say that this will occur on, let's say I know I'm going to do 5 lessons on ratios, and the first one is going to be August 25th, so I can just stick this one in there. And then there's 4 more of these, so I can just say add another date, and then I can say, okay, then the next follow-up activity is going to be the 31st. So I can put my dates in here. This will, when you do that, this will make this intervention appear on your master calendar for the year. The last one, intervention date is to be determined. We strongly, 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 strongly recommend that you not use this. If you do that, if you check this, it forces your intervention to be at the end of the month or the end of all the months, and it doesn't put it in your timeline, and it's just kind of a waste. So we really do want you to be thinking about, okay, when are these things going to happen, and get dates in for them so that they're planned and they're on the calendar. Very important. Then in this next section, this is if you're daydreaming, don't daydream now. This is really important. So the very next step is about preparation. And right here, you're going to tell us, do you need to prepare in these ways for this intervention? So I'm doing a sequence of ratio lessons. Am I going to need professional development for those 7th grade teachers? Yeah, that would probably be good. So I'm telling, by writing this, by checking that, I'm telling the system that in the next step, give me a place where I can type in what my professional development is. Let's say am I going to need to get some resources. Let's say I'm going to be using some manipulatives to teach resources. So yes, and when I check that, what I'm telling the system is in the next step, give me a place where I'm going to type in what resources I need. Am I going to need funding? You know, maybe you are for those to purchase those manipulatives, so yes. And again, when you check that in the next step, you're going to have a place where you're going to type in what money you're going to need to get, what funding you'll need to get, and how you're going to get it. So, and then other tasks, are if there's other things that don't fall into professional development, resource securement, and funding, then you would check that. So in our next step, in the next part that you'll do after all your interventions are finished, the system will prompt you to develop anything that you've checked here. Okay? Okay. And notice that we've given you some notes, like you say, intervention evaluation. I didn't have the opportunity to check that, and that's because interventions that are associated with turnaround principles by DOE's rules and regs, you have to evaluate those interventions. So that's automatically checked, and again, when you get to the next section, you'll be asked to explain how you're going to evaluate that intervention. Okay, so entry for this tab is complete, and I'm going to save. Okay, so then, so I've finished my 3 steps, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3 tabs are checked. I can go back to select another intervention, and you can see here's the intervention that I just developed. I can edit any one of these, or I can add another intervention or whatever. I think you're probably, the light bulb's going off, you're probably going to have a lot of interventions here. Yeah, you will. It's really hard to raise student achievement with just one, attendant making phone calls to parents for attendance. So, each of these root causes is probably going to need several things to really impact that root cause. Okay, then in my status column here, you'll see that I've submitted one. I forgot to submit the one that I did yesterday, and I haven't yet submitted the one that I just wrote. So I'm going to go ahead and let's just do the one that I just wrote. So it's asking me who's going to submit this, and I find me. And by checking the box, I'm confirming that this intervention is ready for Tina to review, and then submit. Okay, so that's been submitted, and now I've got 2 things waiting for Tina to review. Okay, so that is how you enter the interventions. And so you can see, if everything's well thought out ahead of time, it took me about 10 minutes to describe that intervention and get it all linked in the system. Okay, so now after all of your interventions are linked, you're going to confirm that all interventions have been entered. This is telling Tina and you, these are my interventions, and I'm not going to enter any more. So I'm going to click this, enter. Here's my interventions, and now I'm saying I'm submitting that all of these are ready, and I'm not going to put in any more. Okay, at that point, when you're finished entering the interventions and you've confirmed that they're all in there, then we start all these crosswalks. So I'm going to open up each of these really quickly just to kind of show you the richness of them. The first one is the root causes crosswalk. So I'm going to click that, and I see that I have my interventions. Here's the 3 interventions I have in, and then here are my root causes. So I can see I have 1 intervention in for attendance is low. I have another intervention for kids do not have access for extra help, and one for the math teachers aren't teaching ratios units. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, yeah, this one intervention, that's pretty, comprehensive. If we do this, that should take care of that root cause. Students do not have access to extra help. If I do this math club, that's going to give them extra help every day to math tutoring. So that's not bad. Attendance. Oh, do I really think that just calling parents is going to, take care of my attendance issue? I don't think so. I think I have a weakness here. And so then you'd go back and add another intervention or beef up that intervention. So as you're looking at this, you're saying, do these interventions that are checked, if we do them well, will that take care of this root cause? This is the most important crosswalk report. Remember, it's all about your local data, your local root causes. This helps you think and helps Tina think about whether or not there are enough interventions and beefy enough interventions to address your root causes. Okay, that's the root causes crosswalk report. Now I'm going to look at the ACA Elements. This is just kind of an informational report. It's interesting for us. I think it's interesting for you. So here are your interventions. Here's the ACA Elements of High Achieving Schools. And you can see that this school has decided to do nothing about raising expectations, nothing about curriculum rigor, nothing about, actually, they probably did through those lessons, but I didn't check it, so I need to go back and check that. Classroom is nothing to strengthen classroom assessment, nothing to strengthen student guidance, and that may be okay. What we're looking for is the first 4, or I'm sorry, we're looking for 2 through 5. Those are the big ones. Actually, 1's important too. But you've got, an instructional intervention and an extra help intervention. That's strong. So we would probably, be somewhat happy with that. Okay, so that's the ACA Elements. I'm going to go to the turnaround principles. So here is a list of the interventions. Here are Indiana DOE's 8 turnaround principles, and this is showing that I have an intervention that is addressing use of time and an intervention that's addressing instruction. Now, if I'm a priority school, that's a problem because priority schools have to have interventions for all 8 of these things, which is why the system prompted you to develop those. Also, note that DOE also expects, if you're a priority school or a focus school, that any of the turnaround principles that you're hitting, that you would have addressed every single one of the rubric items. So the fact that I have no's in here means that, yes, I have a use of time intervention, but it's not meeting all of the rubric items for use of time. So, okay. So if I scroll down, I can see each of the interventions again, and then this is school leadership, principle 1. Here are all the rubric items, so I can see, I haven't hit any of those rubric items. Let's scroll down. Yeah, here's one around instruction. I hit this first one, but I didn't hit the other 5. So, okay, so this kind of, especially if you're a focus or a priority school, this helps you understand which turnaround principles you're hitting and which rubric items you're hitting. Okay, student groups. So these are all of the student groups that are identified in by the feds. And again, here are your interventions. And we've said that Math Club is going to hit the free and reduced lunch because we're targeting students into that Math Club. Attendance is going to hit male and black students because they have a bigger attendance problem, and so we're going to be probably calling their parents more. And then we already talked about the ratios lessons. So, okay. Okay, so that's the student groups. And let's see, student groups, external expectations. This is another really important report. So we're saying that here are the interventions. Here are all of the external expectations for the school and who holds them. So parent involvement. So when you get to this report, you're thinking, parent involvement is not an issue in our school. It wasn't a root cause for us. We have great parent involvement, but PL 221 says that, we need to address parent involvement. So you'll need to go back and enter an intervention for parent involvement. I'd make it something that was really not time consuming, just, or it could even be to continue what you're currently doing to get those parents to be involved. And then check those off. Okay, so again, if this were my school, I'm looking at, I'm not meeting any of the Indiana rules and regs right now. We've abbreviated the rules and regs right up there. Here is the rule or reg down here, and then the ones that are required by PL 221. And then other parts of Indiana code require a graduation plan, reading plan, high ability plan, and a school tech plan. So these are things, most likely your school's already doing. We just want to document that you're doing them. Okay, here's Title I school-wide, all the expectations for that and how you're meeting them. And then Title I targeted assistance, Title I focus targeted. So, okay. Now, you'll see that there's a lot of external expectations. We added them all up and there's a ton. And I just wanted to assure you that on behalf of you, we have lobbied and will continue to lobby big time to get rid of these external expectations and to let your local data drive your decision making instead of having a legislator or the federal government or someone else determine what interventions you need to put in your school. We don't think that there are interventions that fit all schools. So, attendance is a big one. Not all schools have a problem with attendance. So why should every school have to implement an intervention around attendance? So we want you to spend your time and energy around the interventions that align with your root causes. However, we know that you have to be compliant with all this outside stuff. So do it in the least time-consuming way possible. And it's perfectly okay to describe what you're already doing. If you already have things in place that make your school safe and disciplined, then just say we're continuing this intervention. So, okay. Okay, so that's that one, external expectations. Energy level, and click that. This is just saying that right now I have 3 interventions. They're all medium level, so I don't have anything yet that's going to tax the entire staff in a big way. I'm taxing groups of teachers in my school in a big way, but not everybody. And I don't have any low energy ones. Okay, and then the school improvement plan summary. This ties everything together, and we'd like you to take a look at it and just make sure that you're happy. So here's what it is. We're saying that this is, these are general root causes that affect all SMART goals. So here are your general root causes: attendance and external expectations. You've got one intervention that's addressing that. Then that's all the general. Then this is the part that I think is really rich and that will be helpful. Here's my SMART goal. 9th grade free and reduced lunch students. I want to increase the percentage of students who solve absolute value linear equations in one variable on the Algebra 1 ECA. So that's the goal, and I'm saying that the reason that students have an issue with that is because students don't have access to extra help. So here's the goal, here's the root cause, and here's the intervention. Okay, let's look down at another one. The next one is free and reduced lunch, 7th grade free and reduced kids mastering ratios. I'm saying that they're not mastering it because here's the root cause: 7th grade math teachers aren't teaching ratios. And then here's the fix: 7th grade ratios. I'm putting in this lesson sequence. So again, this is this is your school improvement plan in a nutshell: the goal, the root cause, and the intervention. So, okay. Okay, now one other thing is that when you are happy with each of those root cause reports, we do want you to submit them, and at that point we will look at them and we'll kind of look at, do we feel like we're happy too that you have significantly addressed each of your root causes, you are meeting all the external expectations. So we're kind of looking over your shoulder every step of the way in this part, and as you can imagine, we know it's time consuming for you, it's extremely time consuming for us too, but we really want to be your partner in this section and to coach and mentor. So, okay, couple of other things. One thing that I forgot to show is up here on the interventions. This is kind of something you've not seen before. In the status column, we're showing that there have been 3 interventions, 2 are submitted, 1's not submitted. Oops, forgot to submit that. I click it, here it is, I can submit it, and then we'll be good. As Tina starts to approve things, it'll say 2 submitted, 1 approved, 1 needs revision, and then you click on that, you can read Tina's comments and revise. So, okay. Okay, next step, so that's all the crosswalks. Next step, we're going to finish up in about 5 minutes. Next step is to enter the turnaround principle monitor assignments. So I'm going to hit the enter edit. This is a DOE requirement, and it is asking you to determine which of your team members is going to be kind of responsible for monitoring each of the school leadership interventions in that principle. So if I'm assigned to school leadership, it means that it's my job to make sure that we're addressing student leadership according to all the rubric items that are in there. I'm kind of the flag waver on the steering team for school leadership. Let's say Tina is the flag waver for school culture and climate. So we're really adopting these principles so that there's one person who's like the flag waver and the voice of instruction or the voice of using data that's kind of focused on that as you're looking at all of your interventions. Okay, so that's turnaround principles. Then, if you are a focus or a priority school, this will be hot. If you're not, this will be gray. What we'd like you to do is to talk with your DOE outreach coordinator, who's also mentoring you, before we finalize everything. And you're going to click on this. This gives you some thoughts. I'm sorry, this will take you to a page that links all of, on DOE's website, that lists all of the outreach people, and you can figure out which ones for your district. And then contact them and just say, here are the interventions that we're planning to do. Here's a report right in that same row. Here's the interventions, so 7th grade ratios, sequence lesson. Here's a description of that intervention. So you can send them that report as an email attachment, or we just want them to be involved at this point. And then you're just going to confirm that you have contacted your outreach coordinator from DOE, and then what was their response? Did they ask you to edit anything? Were they happy? You know, what was their part of the conversation? Okay, and then when you're finished doing that, then just hit that to let Tina know that that's finished. And then at the very end, when everything is complete, we just want you to say, okay, everything is finished, and you're going to click the submit. And then what that does is, when Tina then knows that you're finished, we've approved everything, then that will open up the next step on preparation. So, okay, we do give you an intervention signature sheet. I'll show you what that looks like. It lists your interventions, and then it asks for signatures. So this is something that a lot of our schools have every single teacher in the building sign this, but we'd like to know that the people that are representatives of your biggest stakeholder groups, as well as the principal, teacher, and parent, and a student, that people have looked at these and they understand that these are the interventions that you'll be doing next year. And again, in a lot of our schools, every single teacher in the building is signing off on those. Okay, and then finally, here's your intervention calendar. When you click on that, it gives you the date and then what you said you were going to do. So you can see how these to be announced show up, which is really meaningless in a calendar. So put as many dates in here as you possibly can. Okay, and then that takes you to Rubric, and that's it. Okay, when everything is approved, so finalized interventions, when this says meets criteria, then you are ready to go on to preparation. Watch this video, and that will become hot as soon as we've approved all your interventions. Watch the video, and that will tell you how to do your final step. Okay, and then the very last thing, and we'll cover this in the video above, but you would download, before September 30th, you would download your school improvement plan, and then upload it to DOE. This takes you to DOE's page. And then also, if you're a focus or priority school, you're going to download the SAP, Student Assistance Plan, and then you'd send that as an email to your email attachment to your DOE coordinator. Okay, I think that's it. So one other thing. So the tasks that you're working on next is to research and discuss your interventions, enter your interventions, and then go through all those crosswalk reports, and then and edit them where you need to, and then enter the discussion summary as well. So, okay, upcoming tasks, I've touched on this a couple of times, but as soon as your interventions are finalized and meets criteria, then we want you to watch the preparation video ASAP. So Tina, could you be looking up when the interventions are due to us? I didn't put that up here. Do you have that handy? It's on the process.
Just a minute.
I guess I could go back. I think it's September 2nd, if I remember right.
I believe that's correct. I remember seeing that on the
So
rubric.
we're really concerned about these deadlines, and I'm so pleased that you all have kept up. I think we only have just a couple of schools that are a step behind, and we know how much work this is, so we really, really appreciate that, and we know that we're pushing you to get those interventions in by September 2nd. What I wanted to ask is that you not wait until the deadline. If all of your interventions come in from all of our schools on September 2nd, Tina is going to have thousands of interventions to review. So please don't wait until September 2nd. I would start like tomorrow, just as soon as you can, have that steering team meeting and start looking at how are we going to design these interventions, what are we going to do to address our root causes. The sooner you can get them into us, the sooner Tina can start reviewing them, which would be really helpful on our end. We're a little bit worried that not only do you not have enough time because of the shortened timeline with DOE, but we want to make sure that we have enough time to do quality work in mentoring and guiding you. So please, please, please do not wait until that September 2nd deadline. Then as soon as you finish, so like theoretically you could finish all of your interventions tomorrow and you could be on to preparations by Wednesday. As soon as you finish, watch the preparations video, and then preparations are due September 20th. And again, if you can work ahead and not put it to deadline, that would really, really help us be able to do quality work for you. The sooner you get them in, the more time we have to review them. And again, I'm really worried if you all wait until September 2nd and September 20th, I think it's going to be difficult on our end. We're prepared to work evenings and weekends or whatever we have to do to help with that, but it would really help us if you can get those in as soon as possible. So preparations are due September 20th. That gives us a few days to review them, and you a few days to revise if you need to. And then you're submitting your SIP and your SAP to DOE by the end of the month. Okay, one other thing is that when you submit your interventions, they go into a queue, and Tina reviews them first come, first serve. So she knows, that they're there. When they come into her queue, there's a date on them, so we know how long they've been sitting there. Normally, you have our commitment to a 48-hour turnaround on comments. We're hoping that we can honor that, but it's going to be kind of a crunch time, both on your end and on our end. So at any rate, we'll be patient with you. Please be patient with us, and we'll just get this done. And we know you're going to work as hard as you can to meet deadlines and work ahead of deadlines, and we will too. You have our word on that. So okay, here again is Tina's contact information. Tina, anything you want to add at this point?
One thing, the friendly reminders went out this morning, and if everybody can look at those, check your email, and if you can just get those loose ends tied up right now, that would be really, really, really good for you and us both. And that way we for sure know that you have all the information that you need. And then, Sue knows from our earlier hangout, I still kind of have Olympic fever hangover here, so I'm kind of thinking in analogies. But this is definitely our marathon, but we go at it in a sprint. So we will do the best we can. You're going to get weird hours of when you're going to get things back. So just don't pay any attention to that time frame. It will just get back to you. So, and I will be working, call any, from now on out, call anytime. If I'm here, I will definitely pick up the phone, and if not, I'll check messages and I'll send you emails so that we can keep this process going.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's surprising how many calls we get in the evening, and we do try to take those calls because we know you're working in the evening, and it's hard when you have kids during the day to work during school hours sometimes, but we will do our very best to be as responsive as we can to help you out in this crunch time. So And then the good news is that looking into year 2 next year, we'll have the full school year to look at updated student data and update your school improvement plan. So not only will we have a longer time period to kind of relax about all of this next year as we're doing your annual update, but you won't be starting from scratch, and that makes it a whole lot easier too. So the first year is always kind of intensive, and when we're working in this shortened time frame because of DOE's deadlines last year, it just puts us all into a crunch. But you guys have been wonderful. Tina's been very happy. She filled us in this morning during our staff meeting about the quality of your work, as well as your just that you rolled up your sleeves and got it done. So. And I know that nobody's getting a raise for doing this, and you know the reward is seeing student achievement go up. And a lot of times I know kids and parents don't tell you thank you, but we thank you. We very much know how much work this is, and I hope you see that it's good work, that you're coming out with a targeted school improvement plan that's going to make a difference. So, okay, with that, I know we're a little bit over, so we'll let you go, and call Tina tomorrow, this evening, this afternoon if you have questions. We have another webinar coming up at 4:30, but other than 4:30 to 5:30, she should be available. So, okay, thanks everyone, and call if you have questions, and please don't wait till the deadlines this time. Please start working ASAP. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.